Hey, this is the first part of a new series I'm making called Capitalism Rhetoric, where we will look at rhetoric that people use to defend capitalism and attempt to debunk it. So for this first episode, I'm going to be going over the if you trade, then you must be better off argument. You're going to see capitalism apologists making this argument in all different sorts of ways. So let's look at two of them making this argument.
Isn't free trade what I'm practicing here?
Thank you. Thank you.
Every day I buy some food.
Brownie, sir?
Thank you.
And every time something odd happens, they say, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And so do I. Every time I engage in that free trade, there's that odd double thank you moment.
A great day, thank you.
Thank you.
Why the double thank you when I pay $1 for a cup of coffee?
Because she wanted the dollar more than she wanted the coffee. I wanted the coffee more than I wanted the dollar. We both win.
Because trade is voluntary. The trade doesn't happen unless both parties think they win.
So this is what we're going to do for you.
Trade is a good thing.
Now that's how shoes supposed to look.
Tonight, myths and truths about trade.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Can't deny.
Well, okay, but sorry, I'm waiting for you to take a breath, but I feel I'm going to wait in vain, so I'm going to have to interrupt you for a sec. So this idea that in a free market you gain while other people suffer is foundationally incorrect. I mean, as the Austrians would say, it's praxeologically incorrect.
Right.
So, and I know you know this, but just for the listeners, of course, fundamentally, if you and I exchange something and there's no coercion involved, I don't have a gun to your ribs, I don't have your children hostage or anything like that. If you and I exchange something voluntarily, by definition, we are both better off because of that exchange, right? So the old example is if I have $1 and you have a pencil and we voluntarily exchange those two items, then by definition, praxeologically, in reality, foundationally, rationally, empirically, I must want the pencil more than I want my dollar, and you must want my dollar more than you want your pencil, because we're freely exchanging those things. So in a free market exchange, the two parties who voluntarily exchange are by definition better off. They have, and this is true if I decide to go and work for someone rather than start my own company. I choose that as a better course for myself. If I choose to go and start my own company, I've both worked for people and started my own company. It's just a matter of personal choice. As long as there's no force involved, as long as there's no fraud involved, unlike your unfortunate experience with the video production company, by definition, both parties are better off because they have both chosen voluntarily to perform that particular exchange. And so there's no way to get around that. That's just a basic fact. Now, if you use the government to print money and give it to you before the inflation hits the poor, which is wretched and the foundation, unfortunately, of our economy, if you use the military-industrial complex, you know, most of the jobs that have been created since the financial crash of 2007 have been in the military-industrial complex. It's completely evil, and this is the mass murder. But I mean, what on earth is the mass murder? As I sort of go back to this point, what does this have to do with the free market?
Now, anytime you hear this argument, what you're really listening to is a rhetoric tautology. This is a series of statements that form an argument whereby the statements are constructed in such a way that the truth of the proposition is guaranteed. Consequently, the statement conveys no useful information regardless of its length or complexity, making it unfalsifiable. It is a way of formulating a description such that it masquerades as an explanation when the real reason for the phenomena cannot be independently derived. So what we have is at first a rhetoric tautology where the libertarian says in order for voluntary exchange to happen, both parties must be better off. And this is followed by a non sequitur. Therefore, capitalism is the best possible economic system, and we need free and open markets, and we cannot restrict this trade, and blah, 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 blah. But let's go to this first part. So we have John Stossel buying coffee. And his basic argument is that if we assume into existence the scenario where I want the coffee more than my dollar and she wants the dollar more than the coffee, then this free trade is a win-win situation and therefore capitalism. Then he goes and he gets his shoes shined. And he says, because the guy shining my shoes wants my money more and I want my get my shoes shined more, therefore capitalism, and it must be a win-win situation. Okay, this is the rhetoric tautology. So he's basically saying if we assume into existence the scenario where I want to get my shoes shined and this guy wants to have the money more than the labor that it'll take him to shine my shoes, we're both better off for having the transaction. Therefore, if we assume the scenario where this trade will make us both better off, then if we trade, then we're both better off. A complete rhetoric tautology that has nothing to do whatsoever with justifying capitalism or attacking capitalism. It's just really, really stupid. And I'm going to make a little graphic to show how stupid this argument is. The argument basically assumes that John Stossel and this shoeshine person are just somehow floating around in space in a backdrop of this void of maybe some stars or maybe some bizarre vacuum like they are up here. And the entire exterior world, except for their stupid little shoeshine transaction, doesn't exist. So in summation, my point is to watch out for when libertarians say this. They basically argue that if we assume a specific context into existence, then within the confines of the simple and truncated example, we are both better off with free trade. Therefore, free trade is the most valid economic system for humanity to use. They're not looking at the physical world. They're not saying with reference to technology, with reference to resources, with reference to objective human needs, and given all these things as they are, therefore capitalism is going to produce anything. No, they just assume a very narrow context into existence, and then they say, well, therefore it works in this context that I've made up out of thin air, therefore it will work in the real world. But of course, in the real world, there are tons of things happening that mess up this free trade model that are not going to happen if we put John Stossel into the vacuum of space with a shoeshine person and him wanting to get his shoes shined and this person wanting the money more. So that's the point. I am not going to go into all the things that they're missing out because that's the basically as soon as you start studying people who argue against free trade capitalism, you're going to start seeing all these external problems that John Stossel is just abstracting away. Okay, that's it. Bye.